Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You know, everybody reaches out to me at the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series, and they say, Jake, we love it when you bring leaders in their particular field on the show. We don't care what field it is. It's just so fascinating when you bring leaders in the field on the show and you have a great talk about entrepreneurialism and their companies. We learn so much. So, of course, one thing that we love at DotCom Magazine, as everybody knows, is we love software development. I mean, it's really the basis of everything that's going on in the world today. So we've been able to bring a real leader in the field of software development on the show. His name is Mr. Matt Dixon. You may have heard of Matt. He's the founder and CEO of Code Program. And he's got a great business, and he also has a great code program for tech geeks. And I love that so much. We're going to get into it all. We're going to unpack it. But Matt, first of all, it's an honor to have you on the show, and welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Super good to have you. Let's do like we always do. What we become famous for, as you know, let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell us about Code Program.
Yeah, so I started Code Program. Well, it's brand new, actually. So I started developing it maybe 6 months ago. We had a couple tough projects back to back, and we thought we were successful. The client, not so much. So we did a little introspective, a little review. What could we have done better? And honestly, there were some things that we could have done better, but for the most part, I think it's the whole team needed to come together a little bit better. It's never pointing the finger at one person, but it's, how can we be more effective as a team? And so from there, we started developing the program, the Code Program, and trying to help organizations, specifically tech organizations, become better at working together as a team.
Yeah, I love it so much. And of course, you originally became known with FrontRange Systems, and then you moved into Code Program about 6 months ago. But let's talk about FrontRange Systems. It's a leading software development service. I mean, it's an incredible business. Let's talk about that as well before we get into it.
Sure thing. Yeah, we've been in business, I think, 16 years. I've stopped keeping track. And we focus primarily on not necessarily an industry vertical, but a technology stack. We do .NET. A lot of stuff is going to the cloud. So .NET used to be on Windows servers. Now it can go on Linux or Windows. So we've been finding that pretty cool. Linux on the back end, and then like Angular or React or something like that for the front end technology. And we've got top-notch developers, QA designers, CI/CD, DevOps, all the geeky things. We do it all.
I love it. You have a great company, of course, a great team. We're going to get into that momentarily. A real world-class team, guys and gals that have been around the industry for a long time. But when we talk about software development, is there an area that you specialize in, or do you cover it all?
Well, no one covers it all, but a lot of things we do are things that help the business be more effective through software. That could be some automation, back-end processes, or sometimes it's helping develop a client portal or customer portal where their customers can do things for themselves, like make payments and things like that. So things that were paper-based are now electronic.
Yeah, I love it, man. Of course, I want to get into the Code Program for tech geeks. I mean, I thought that was just so cool when we heard about it. I want to get into that. But before we do, when somebody reaches out to you, Matt, or they reach out to your team, or a company reaches out, what are some of the big problems that they have as to why they reach out to you, Matt, and they say, hey, we need your help. We need FrontRange Systems to really help us. Well,
we are in business because we solve problems. So a lot of those problems can be, like with the Code Program, it's with the team, not necessarily a problem, but maybe we want to go to the next level. And then from a technology standpoint, a lot of the problems people face are, here's a classic example, two systems that don't talk to each other, but both systems need to know about the information in the other. So, there's a good piece of integration that we can do, and, try to make sure that you only enter data in one place and that both systems are always up to date.
So interesting. And of course, when we talk about computer languages, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but throughout the years, I mean, computer languages have changed, and they've changed fairly dramatically in certain cases. How do you and your team stay abreast on those languages and what you need to sort of understand to give the world-class service to your clients?
Yeah, that's a constant struggle in technology. Like I said, no one does everything. No one can know everything about every language. So we focus, our primary tech stack is .NET Core for the back end, Angular, React on the front end. The database doesn't really matter. You can use pretty much anything now. But we always try to stay current and stay up to date with training, reading blogs, doing research, and the best way to get up to speed on something is to solve a challenge using that technology.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. And you've become known as sort of a real problem solver. Let's talk about this just for a second, because technology, Matt, we think about it and we think about the challenges. And oftentimes, from a layman's standpoint, they look and appear to be very, very complex problems. But you become known at your company, and your entire team has become known as a group of people that are able to take these very complex problems, these very complex, situations, and make them more simple for your clients. Where did that come from? Where did that idea in your brain come from that we need to take the complex and make it simple for people to understand?
Well, that kind of abstraction is around us all the time. Even the apps we use, like if you look at the Uber app, it seems like a simple thing, right? I'm right here. I need to go from here to somewhere else. But if you look at it from a computer standpoint or software standpoint, well, your phone knows a lot about you, and then it's sending requests to the server. It knows where everyone else is. It can see who's closest, what's available, what type of vehicle you want, what type of driver you want. All those things, like everyone likes algorithms, but that is an algorithm of how to decide who's going to come pick you up. So right there, like, you don't see all the behind the scenes. And that's what we need to do as software developers and a team, is to take a user interface, make it as simple as possible, but no simpler, like Einstein said, and just titrate it down to just the bare bones of what people need to know.
Yeah, I love it so much. So that leads me to a kind of a fascinating question that one of our viewers actually sent in and told me to ask the next sort of software development expert on the show this question. So when you look at an app, or you're online, or you're involved with some technology, are you able to enjoy it? Or does your brain always start thinking about what's going on behind the scenes? And you brought Uber up. So for example, can you enjoy the Uber app, or are you always thinking to yourself, what's going on behind the scenes to make this thing work?
Yeah, well, you could spend all day thinking that. One of the things that do come to mind, though, is people want apps built. Right? Everyone wants an app built. But I don't think what they understand is the amount of money and resources that go into making an app. Software development is a labor-intensive task, and you hire smart people to think. And so that's the thing that I find fascinating is, the Uber app, I wouldn't even venture a guess on how much they've invested in their development. But if I want to do something similar, I could do it a lot cheaper if I trim out all the features, right? If I cut it down to the bare bones.
Yeah, and that's a great, sort of lesson for the entrepreneurs watching the show. When you put something out there, most likely you want to put out what's called the minimal viable product, because you want to make sure that the minimal viable product works, that it resonates for your customers, and then you can start stacking on all the additional features. So for the younger entrepreneurs and the startups watching the show, that resonates for me, Matt, what you said, and that's a great piece of advice. Now, Matt, let's talk about code program. I mean, when I saw this, I got very excited, because the way you sort of, announce it and the way in which you sort of talk about it is code program for tech geeks. And we love that so much. And of course, we say that, with a lot of affection. Tell us about the code program and what that's all about, Matt.
Yeah, so the code program, it's intended to help software development teams specifically. It can apply to any team, actually. But we're in tech, we're focusing on tech. So it helps software development teams become better together, take them to the next level. Or if there's a merger and acquisition, help them come to the same place culturally, a cultural transformation. So an interesting thing is it's a 6-month program with a minimum of 5 team members because we want to help the whole team. Touch point is a company specific presentation. Like one of our clients, they asked for how to help developers give better presentations. That's a slam dunk. We can do that all day long. And then 2 calls a month will be the core curriculum that we've developed. So we've got 12 different topics that we go over during the course of the program.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's so needed. I just interviewed Matt, someone that's a founder of a startup, a 2-year-old startup, and his company was just acquired. It was a great story. And one thing that sort of I started thinking about in advance of our interview, Matt, was what happens when you get 2 companies with 2 different sort of sets of coders, and maybe they work in a little bit different way, and then you have to merge those companies together and get the coders working together. Is that something that is an ongoing challenge in terms of the way you look at things, Matt, with companies that sort of merge or get acquired?
Yeah, that's actually the biggest challenge they face is getting everyone in alignment with the company goals. And that alignment could be like a consolidated tech stack. And developers are interesting. They're kind of like artists. They love what they do, and everything out there is garbage. Like if you use language ABC, well, language XYZ is the worst language ever on the planet. So you've got that struggle and that battle, and sometimes things come down to a religious debate, so to speak, and to try to help people come to terms with, okay, well, maybe I could use language XYZ, it's not so bad, and vice versa. Maybe I could use language ABC, even though I'm used to XYZ. I think those are the types of conversations that we can have, and we can help as coaches. We can also say things that maybe someone that's a full-time employee there cannot say to the team. So that's really advantageous to a lot of people.
Yeah, Matt, that makes all the sense in the world. Now, when we think about Code Program, of course, you just started it, but it's already starting to gain some traction. What type of companies do you expect in the future to reach out to you and say, hey, we've heard about Code Program, everybody's talking about it. What are their challenges going to be, and why are they reaching out to join sort of the Code Program in your mind?
Yeah, I think we've got 2 different challenges, right? The one is their team is not functioning well. One of the projects we ran into that was not a healthy project was, we had a lot of blame within the team, not really for our team members, but there was blame being placed. Instead of trying to address the issue, blame doesn't help anyone. So that's one part. If someone or several people in the team just don't get along, they're not working well together, something's wrong, we can come in and we'll find out what it is and fix it. The second option is, Olympic athletes have coaches. Everyone in the Olympics has a coach, from the person that does the hammer throw to, swimmers to the team sports. They all have coaches, and they'll have personal coaches and team coaches. But in the business world, we have business coaches, we have personal coaches, but we don't have anyone that can help coach the team. So if we're doing well as a team, but we want to go to the next level, that's where we come in.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. I mean, everybody has coaches, and of course, consultants are important and mentors are important. And I know you're a big believer in all of those things. When we look at companies, and when you look at a company, Matt, and you look at their corporate culture, and how important is that corporate culture to make sure that the tech guys and gals are all getting along in a unified way to make sure their resulting technology is the best in the business?
Yeah, culture is really important for a team. You don't need a foosball table to have good culture. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on if they like foosball, right? Maybe they don't. But a lot of developers, they love working from home. That's a big plus for people. With the pandemic, it kind of turned everything on its head. And the next generation of workers, our current company cultures are typically not well suited for that next generation. So we've got to listen to them, see what they want. They're not lazy. They're young, they're smart, they're bright. So what do they need specifically that, say, my generation didn't, or my parents' generation didn't need? It's completely different each generation, and we've got to not bend over backwards for them, but we've got to work together. We've got to see them as an asset, not as a liability.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Matt. I mean, here we are, it's getting into the new year where everybody, has learned through the pandemic. Not everybody, but a lot of people have learned to work at home. They have to learn how to talk on Zoom, and they have to talk, on the phone or through chat or whatever it's going to be. But here we have a new group of people coming into the workforce, the younger group of people. I would imagine in the tech world, that we have people in their 20s, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s now. So I would imagine that integration of people that are in their, 40s, 50s, and 60s talking to the people in their 20s and maybe even 30s, or people in their 20s talking to the people in 30s. There's such a difference there already that really is an important thing to focus on, to make sure that everybody on a team is working collectively to make the best possible software that they can. And that's where Code Program, I would imagine, can help some companies sort of traverse that differential of age group amongst their coders, right?
Yeah, exactly. That generational difference is really stark. For instance, my generation, I feel like a dinosaur sometimes. So like 20 years ago, we relocated. And the first thing I did is I went to a gas station and I bought a map. Like a paper map. Well, why didn't you just use your phone? Because those didn't exist. They literally did not exist. So it's interesting with this next generation. They grew up with the internet, and I got the internet as an adult, or in high school. So I think that there is just reason enough to pause and say, how can we help the communication between these different generations, different mindsets, different approaches? I think one thing we can do is genuinely consider that each person is trying to contribute and do their best. I think once you do that, that will help open some doors that normally wouldn't be there.
That's a great approach. And one thing, of course, in researching you before our interview is you really believe that software development services really have a great potential to really boost revenue and increase customer loyalty, really in one fall swoop. I mean, you're sort of an expert in thinking about revenue boosting and customer loyalty. So where did that idea come from? Because that's just a great way to approach software development.
Well, so I have a couple examples. One is we did a software application that we replaced an existing one. The existing one took about 10 minutes to complete a record. We were when we deployed it, I was on the call with the person that was like the manager of the team that was going to use this new software program. She went through and found all the information, entered it all, and then she hit submit and it worked. And she was absolutely giddy because that whole process took about 30 to 45 seconds. So, and then in that call, she said, I don't have to hire 2 more people. I can take those job requisitions off. And so that saved them tons of money. Another one is a membership company, style company. They have, 5,000 members or something like that send in checks every year to renew their membership. And they fill out a paper form. And then someone has to review it. Someone has to go to the bank. Making that all digital and taking payments online was a huge asset to them. And now they can do more with the same number of people, and they can continue to grow even.
I love it. Yeah. Well, listen, you're an expert. You've done so much for so many companies. I mean, you've increased revenue and boosted their revenue and boosted their customer loyalty through your software development and working hand in hand with their development team or their C-level executives, which is really incredible. Now, Matt, I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time. I know you've got this Code Program up. People are starting to talk about it, starting to get some traction. So I wanted to, first of all, thank you for coming on the show, but I wanted to move our conversation to entrepreneurship. We have some younger entrepreneurs watching the show, some startup founders that are listening to you. Maybe they're hitting a pothole in the road. Maybe they're hitting a roadblock. Maybe they're freezing in the frame and they don't know what to do. So I'm hoping you might be able to give some advice to the other entrepreneurs watching the show, the younger entrepreneurs, the startup founders who are hitting a pothole in the road, and give them some advice on what it takes to get through the potholes and come out the other side, being more powerful and positive, having gone through the challenges or the problems that they're currently facing.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is our brains are really good at thinking this is the status quo for the rest of our life. Whether things are going well, whatever that means, or things are going horribly, like this is going to be it forever. Just remember, it won't be. So if you look at it that way, I could make the next big thing next year if I wanted. Or, if you're hitting a pothole and you're a founder, just keep going. Just try to find good people around you, try to build a great team and build a great product, and then it'll take off eventually.
I love it, man. Of course, I'm going to bring you back on the show because there's so much to unpack. We've talked about software development, but one thing, of course, you're very well known for also is developing and building a great team. And not only that, but helping other companies develop their great team, of course, through this code program that you now have available to so many companies that are now hearing about this and need this program that you offer. So, Matt, I'm going to bring you back on the show. We're going to unpack everything about corporate culture and about hiring the right people and the way in which people need to communicate, even though they're programmers. A lot of times programmers, they're in their own little world, but they have to understand they need to communicate with other programmers to make sure that they're all working collectively to give the best possible product to their clients. And of course, that's what you specialize in, code program for Tech Geeks. So congratulations on that. Congratulations, of course, on what you've done at FrontRange Systems. This has been a remarkable interview, Matt. I'm so thankful that you've come on the show today to share what you're doing. And when we bring you back on the show, we're going to unpack a lot more. And thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today, Matt. This has been awesome.
Well, great. Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it. I'm looking forward to next time.